Welcome back to another episode of Teachable Life Moments with Keeler Bryson. Welcome back from your weekend. I hope you had a wonderful time of rest and relaxation. Can you believe it's already Monday? It's time to start a brand new week. I have to admit, this week I am super excited though because my family, we are blessed to be able to celebrate, some family milestones and events this week. And so I'm just super excited and hyped to get this week started. So without further delay, let's get into it. Today's topic is entitled When False Evidence Appears Real. And so what do we do when false evidence appears real? Most of us are familiar with this saying or this slogan because it typically is the acronym that spells out fear. And so many times, if we're not careful, we will find ourselves, believing false evidence on a daily basis, on a regular basis. And sometimes we can be accustomed to entertaining false evidence and not really realizing that we are getting ready to enter this zone of worry, stress, and discouragement, etc., etc., etc. So today's topic is brought to you by Miracle Bryson. Yes, Miss Mimi. So let me give you the story behind it. The other day we were riding in the car and we were out running some errands. And while we were out running some errands, we got to talking about her birthday. And she was saying that she didn't think anything was happening because she's not seeing anything happening. From her perspective, it appears that, me, her dad, and her sister, her big sister, that we're not doing anything to celebrate or get things in motion. And that's by design, right? Because in most cases, when folks are having a birthday, it's typically the family members are trying to do it in a way where it's low key on the down low and where it appears to be no activity being prepared for the birthday girl or the birthday guy. And so I was so tickled inside because I was thinking to myself, gosh, we are doing a really good job at moving, secretly and on the DL. And, we got some skills over here. And so I began to tell her that just because it appears that nothing is being done for you and your birthday, that does not mean that nothing is being done for your birthday, right? And it got me to thinking about how a lot of times we do that with God. We do that with maybe our prayer requests, our desires, our expectations, right? And we will submit them, and then we're waiting and looking, anticipating signs and symptoms of that expectation and that desire or that request being fulfilled. We want to see some churning, so to speak. We want to see some twinkling. We want to see, some movement, basically. And I'm here to tell you that if you haven't already noticed that a lot of times when God is moving for us, it's without making a lot of noise and commotion, right? He is so smooth. You hear me? In how he manifests and sends us those things that we desire and the things that we expect and the things that we request. All blessings don't have to come making noise and loud clanging and banging and booming and all of that. God is so smooth. And so we have to realize that just because we're not seeing evidence that we want to see does not mean that nothing is happening. Because when we believe that notion, then we are operating in the mindset of when false evidence appears real. And there is a danger in succumbing and subscribing to believing in false evidence. Think about that in the court system. When you are if you've ever watched a court case on television or in real life, where they were, showing you false evidence that was presented to the jurors, and the evidence was false, but it appeared to be real, and as a result, the wrong verdict was given, right? And so that is the danger to us, that we must remember that when we succumb to believing false evidence and believing that it's real, then we can damage our ability to receive the correct outcome, right? Because there are some things that need to be given of us in order to help the desire or the expectation or the request that we are waiting to manifest. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but first let me just kind of follow my outline here, because I kind of want to stay on point. The thing about when we believe false evidence, when we feel that it's appearing to be real, it's really based out of fear, right? Like in the story, I was sharing with you about Miracle and I riding in a car, and when I was listening to her talk, I could just sense fear. What was her fear? Fear that I'm not going to get anything for my birthday. Fear that my family is not really going to do anything to celebrate my birthday. And it's a fear fear can be rational, like your physical or psychological safety is threatened. That's a rational fear, right? And then the second type of fear are irrational fears that have no reason or basis. And when Miracle looks back at all of her birthdays that she can remember, there has not been one time where we did not do something to celebrate and acknowledge her birthday. Gifts and all, cake and all, she likes chicken wings, or maybe she wants pizza. There is not a time that we have not celebrated. So that's an irrational fear that she has. Let me ask you this. How many times have you had any irrational fears? When you look at your resume relationship with God, do you really have a reason to be fearful or to succumb to false evidence appearing real? I mean, when you think about it, is your fear irrational? In a lot of cases, they are. They are irrational because when we think about our track record with God, a lot of times we don't have no really point of reference or evidence to really say we should be in a state of fear or believing false evidence to be real. And the danger of doing this is that it begins to develop a stronghold in your mind. And then the next thing you know, you are rooted in this bondage of irrational fear. And we know that without faith, it's impossible to please God. And in order to produce and to manifest the things that we desire and expect and request, we have to believe. When we look in scripture, there are plenty of instances and stories where Jesus would ask the individual that was in need, do you believe? Why is that so important? Because that helps the thing to form, that helps the request to come to pass. It helps the expectation to show itself. And if we are in a spiritual bondage of irrational fear, then we're kind of like damaging ourselves, and we're preventing the thing that we desire to come forth. So let's break it down even further. What is false evidence? We all have an idea of what it is, but let's just look at the definition, because I really want to drive the point home. False evidence is information given by a person to divert, and divert means to dissuade. It's information to discourage. It is false evidence that tries to talk out of. And when you think about that, that is exactly what false evidence does. It dissuades us. You lose confidence in the ability to get or to believe that, I'm going to get something for my birthday, or my request is going to be answered. Or it not only dissuades us, it will discourage us. When you believe in the false evidence, you become discouraged, right? And listening to the tone of Miss Miracle, you could sense some discouragement because she was truly believing in the false evidence as being real. And when we believe the false evidence, we talk ourselves out of what it is we are expecting, desiring, or requesting. Basically, some people end up just giving up. They were like, you know what? Forget it. You know what? Don't worry about it. Nothing ever works out for me. I never get the things that I want. And then not only have you entered into a state of unbelief, now you are using words to basically snatch what it is you expected from you. It's no longer moving towards you. Now it's moving away from you. False evidence is information given by a person to divert, which is dissuade, discourage, or talk a person out of their expectation, which is their request or their desires. Now, when you think about that, how many times have you probably ruined your potential to receive your expectation, your request, or your desires because you gave up, because you believed the false evidence that appeared real? You lost all hope. Then you begin to speak negatively about your situation. And when you do that, you have hurt yourself. You didn't help yourself, you hurt yourself. And I was listening to Ms. Miracle and I was thinking, wow, how many times do we do God like that? Where we've gone to him about a matter, and then all of a sudden, we start out good at first, and then when I don't know, maybe about 3 days pass and we haven't seen anything, and then if we're not careful, we give up. We lose all faith, hope, and next thing you know, that doubt and fear and worry and frustration, discouragement, all that begins to come in. False evidence is also known to forge, which is fake, it's fabricated, it's stuff that's made up and false. False evidence is tainted evidence, which is poisoned or corrupted evidence. A lot of times our mind is making up this lie about our situation, about our circumstance. I remember I think it was last month, I had sent a request to this business because some time had passed. I think it's been like, 10, 15 years or so. And so I sent a request to this folks about something that I needed them to consider. And they told me they would take a look at it. And I just knew that, they needed to do what I was requesting them to do. And do you know, they sent me a letter and said, nope, they couldn't do it. And I was like, when I got that letter, I was like, what? You can't? And I did not understand what was the rationale totally about it. But I just kept on saying, God, I'm giving this over to you because I really feel like this decision is not justified. Do you know? Later, without me really having to go back and back and forth with them about it, I got another letter in the mail. I guess maybe about 2 weeks ago. And I was going through the mail, I opened it up. Do you know they reconsidered the decision? And I was just like blown away. So folks, false evidence appeared to be real. Now, when folks send you a letter saying, no, unfortunately, we regret to inform you, blah, 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 blah. Now, when they actually tell you that, at that point, that evidence appeared to be real, right? Nonetheless, I kept standing in faith about it. I would not release my position on it. And do you know, the decision was reversed. So I'm here to tell you, even when they say no, that would be, when everybody else look at it, they'd be like, yeah, that's when you need to give up, when they just flat out say, no, we can't do it. But I'm here to tell you, even with a no, God can reverse it and give you your desire, your request, or your expectation. Do not subscribe to false evidence appearing real. That is a strategy to keep us in a state of bondage, where we'll find ourselves in bondage of irrational fear. and God can't use us and send us the things that we desire when we operate from that. Fear, it's false evidence appearing real. Basically, it's fear that we're not going to get what we desire. Like I said previously, it's normal to be fearful sometimes. It's a fundamental emotion that is wired deeply inside of each of us, and all of us have experienced fear. But as believers, we got to know how to manage fear, manage even false evidence appearing real. We cannot allow ourselves to be intimidated, because if we don't learn how to master false evidence appearing real, false circumstances appearing real, we will always be walking around depressed and defeated. So here are some things that I want you to know about when false evidence appears real. One of the things I want you to know is that God is never not doing nothing. Now, I know that's not correct English and all that, but hey, you get the point. I want you to know God is always moving on your behalf, no matter what it looks like. Do you hear what I said? Always. Even when the letter says no, he can still come on back in there and make them say yes. The first thing you want to do to prevent yourself from subscribing and succumbing and being in bondage to false evidence appearing real, because you don't want your life to operate, you don't want to flow in that realm. You need to remember that you've got to learn to see your life through God's perspective rather than your own human limitations. A lot of times, and I know that's easier said than done, because when you are living this human life in this human body and you see real life circumstances confronting you, it can be difficult to have God's perspective. But you know what? It takes practice. Look back at how he's brought you out of things in the past that you didn't think you would come out of, that you didn't think you would get the decision in your favor made, but it did. It all worked out. So when you feel yourself, dwindling down or shrinking to false evidence that appears real, put on your God glasses. You hear me? That way it will be a reminder. I've got to get out of my human limitations and get into God's perspective on this. God's perspective, his mindset, the way God sees it, the way God hears it, all of that. Number 2, you've got to remember this. Now, and this is the thing about miracle. When a parent loves their child, and if a child knows that their parent loves them, then that should cast out concerns about false evidence appearing real, or cast out fear that make you think that, oh, they're not doing anything for me, or they're not planning. That's a lie. We love you, and because we love you, we are going to do something for you. And that is a trick of the enemy often, to try to make us think that God doesn't love us, our family, nobody loves me. That's a lie. And if you struggle with knowing that God loves you, then you need to every day affirm that he does. Speak it out your mouth. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. And that's the word, right? But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. That's the problem. If you're fearful, or you're believing false evidence appearing real, then you have not been made perfect in love, because when you know that God loves you and that he has your back and your best interest at heart, then you can rest in his perspective. You can rest in faith. You can rest in confidence. Rest upon his historical performance in your life. Okay, so if you are struggling with false evidence appearing real in your life, then check your love level with God. The next thing to remember about false evidence appearing real, fear is a thief. And when you believe false evidence that appears to be real, it's going to steal your faith. It erodes your faith. It erodes. What does erode mean? It means it wears down your faith. It eats away your faith. And most of us that have ever experienced this situation, we know what that feels like. You can be in faith, and then the next thing you know, you are so faithless. I mean, you feel weak, in your physical body, because your faith level is so low. It steals our faith. It plunders our hope. What does plunder mean? It steals. It robs us of our hope. And when we believe false evidence to appear real, just like in Miracle's example, you could hear that she was sounding hopeless. Because fear is a thief. False evidence appearing real, it is a thief. It will steal your faith, your hope, and then it steals our freedom, and it takes away our joy. So this is why we cannot subscribe to false evidence appearing real, because it drains us. It is a draining force that will leave us empty. And we've got to remember to not be ignorant of the enemy's devices, right? A lot of times we think the enemy is everybody else, them, those people over there. But a lot of times it's the enemy. It often comes disguised as us. It comes disguised as me, because we don't know how to fight off dealing with false evidence that appears real. I mean, we're entertaining all of these lies, these made up stories, fake, fabricated, tainted, corrupted evidence. We believe all of that. And then we become the enemy because we're sitting there letting our minds entertain it, letting our eyes see it and visualize it, and then have the nerve to speak it out of our mouths. So check the enemy in you on the false evidence that appears real. And so that is the topic that I wanted to present to you today, because it really, really blessed me having that conversation with Miracle. And at the time that it happened, I knew then the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and said, that is your topic for this week. And so I hope that something that was said today is beneficial to you and really gave you something to think about. Because who knows, you may be confronted with false evidence appearing real this week. You may be confronted with being intimidated about a situation or a request, a desire, or an expectation that appears that is not working out in your favor, or it appears that no one is moving for you, or God is not moving for you. That is a lie. It's fabricated, and you need to recognize when you are being presented false evidence that appears to be real. All right, folks, that's my time today. If you like what was said today, please like, share, comment, tell others about the podcast. And as always, if you have a topic that you would like for us to cover, then send us a message and let us know. All right, I thank you for listening, and have a wonderful, wonderful, and safe week.